Welcome to FYIVT, your inside source for news and in-depth analysis on what's really happening in Vermont. We want to start by saying thank you to all our listeners and supporters. Your continued encouragement fuels our mission to dig deeper and bring light to critical issues that shape our communities. We couldn't do this without you. Today, we're diving into our article titled, "Is the Global Warming Solutions Act Worth It?" Vermont's Global Warming Solutions Act was designed to slash greenhouse gas emissions and position the state as a leader in clean energy. It's an ambitious goal, one that seems tailor-made for a state like Vermont, known for its environmental consciousness and picturesque landscapes. But we have to ask, is this transition financially practical for your average Vermonter? Ambition is great, but ambition without careful consideration of cost can leave many in the dust. And who pays the price for that ambition? It's not the policymakers or well-funded organizations that champion these ideas. It's the everyday Vermonter, already burdened by rising costs in one of the most expensive states in the nation. At the center of the Global Warming Solutions Act is the Clean Heat Standard. This regulation mandates that companies importing fossil fuels either provide cleaner energy solutions, like heat pumps, or pay a fee. Sounds simple, right? Reduce carbon emissions, encourage green energy, everyone wins. But life isn't as straightforward as a government mandate. The Clean Heat Standard introduces fees and regulations that don't just vanish into the ether. They get passed down to consumers. That means higher heating bills for many Vermonters who can't afford expensive upgrades or alternative heating systems. And when fuel prices go up, so does the cost of just staying warm through our famously cold winters. Governor Phil Scott has repeatedly raised concerns about the financial impact of these policies, calling the potential price hikes alarming. A state study backs him up, suggesting that heating costs will likely rise for those unable to transition to greener systems. But here's the kicker. Transitioning isn't cheap. Upgrading to a heat pump or switching to biodiesel isn't as simple as flipping a switch. It requires thousands of dollars in upfront costs, money many Vermonters simply don't have. Now let's talk about biodiesel. Sure, it sounds like a great alternative on paper, but the reality is, Vermont has very few biodiesel dealers, making it impractical for most people. And even if the infrastructure was there, we'd still be talking about substantial costs for retrofitting or replacing existing systems. The state may offer incentives, but let's be real. These programs often cover only a fraction of the actual expense. For those already struggling with Vermont's high cost of living, the Clean Heat Standard could feel more like a punishment than a solution. And isn't that the real issue here? These policies are often crafted by people far removed from the financial realities faced by most Vermonters. They look great on a press release, but when it comes to execution, they leave the average person footing the bill for ideals they didn't choose. Proponents argue that the long-term savings from cleaner energy will eventually outweigh the upfront costs. They point to potential benefits like lower heating expenses, a reduced environmental footprint, and improved public health. But here's the rub. Vermont's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is less than 0.015%. Even if Vermont went completely carbon neutral tomorrow, the impact on global climate change would be negligible. So why are we asking Vermonters to shoulder such a significant financial burden for an outcome that barely moves the needle? And let's not overlook the workforce shortages that come with these ambitious goals. Vermont simply doesn't have enough trained workers to install the clean energy systems needed to meet the Act's targets. This gap not only delays progress, but also drives up costs. As the state scrambles to meet its objectives, Vermonters face higher heating bills in the interim, with no guarantee of relief in sight. Isn't it telling that we're rushing forward with policies without ensuring the infrastructure and workforce are in place to support them? Now, here's something to consider. When the legislature passed the Global Warming Solutions Act, they knew it would be costly. Many lawmakers believed that Vermont needed to take a stand on climate change, even at a financial cost to residents. They assumed that the environmental and public health benefits would justify the sacrifices. But how much sacrifice is too much? At what point do we say enough is enough and start prioritizing affordability, practicality, and personal freedom? The numbers tell the story. The estimated cost of implementing the Clean Heat Standard is a staggering $9.6 billion by 2050. Advocates tout $11.7 billion in societal benefits, but those numbers are based on speculative projections that may or may not pan out. Meanwhile, Vermonters are already feeling the pinch of higher heating bills and expensive upgrades. Is this really the best use of our resources? Or is it time to rethink how we approach these issues? This isn't just about numbers, it's about principles. Vermonters value independence, personal responsibility, and the ability to make choices for themselves. The Global Warming Solutions Act, while well-intentioned, risks undermining those values. By imposing costly mandates and narrowing options, it takes decisions away from individuals and places them squarely in the hands of government bureaucrats. That's a slippery slope we should all be wary of. So where does this leave us? The Global Warming Solutions Act aims high, but it's Vermonters who are left holding the bag. If we're serious about tackling climate change, we need solutions that empower individuals, not burden them. We need policies that respect personal choice and focus on affordability, not grandstanding. And we need to ask ourselves, are we pursuing these goals for their actual benefits, or simply to appear virtuous on the world stage? Vermonters deserve better. They deserve policies that prioritize their well-being and economic freedom. It's time to take a step back, reevaluate, and ensure that any actions we take reflect the values of the people who call this state home. Because at the end of the day, no policy, no matter how noble it sounds, is worth sacrificing the financial security and autonomy of Vermont's residents. Freedom is the foundation of prosperity. Stay informed, stay vocal, and most importantly, stay free. Thank you for listening to this episode of FYIVT. To read the full article and explore more on what's happening in Vermont and how the state works, visit us at FYIVT.com. We appreciate your support and look forward to continuing to bring you important perspectives on Vermont's most pressing issues. Until next time.